more than ever, people are in constant pursuit of bingeable content. We can watch an entire season of our favorite series in one day instead of having to wait 9 months for the finale, like Who Killed JR. Podcasts have become essential consumption with over 500 million listeners in 2024 alone. One of the most popular genres is true crime, detailing dramatic real-life cases and the search for evidence revealing who and why. Danielle Blinka is the host of Bad Acts, a true crime podcast. She'll be part of the panel discussion at this weekend's Comicpalooza extravaganza at the George R. Brown Convention Center. When I said one of the most popular genres, true crime, you went, you did like a little dance right there, because it is. A little bit about you. You're a writer. You love to write poetry and you freelance. You're an artist as well, watercolor and oil painting. So you have that creative mind. Performer, theater.
Yes, I love the theater.
Right. What are some of your favorite theater moments, the whodunits?
Oh, okay. So I was in a farcical kind of whodunit play a couple years ago at Theater Suburbia, and it was really fun.
Yeah, all right. True crime, that genre, I think we've always been interested in it, but someone was able to corral it and realize how interested we are in it. What's the why behind that?
I feel like we all just really want to understand like what is behind the true crime stories that we hear about. I mean, usually people who are committing the crimes are different from the rest of us, and I think it's just we really want to understand that puzzle, like who did this, why they do it. It's just like a natural craving, I think, to have answers. And
psychologically, in this case, a natural craving to have answers behind something that we feel could threaten us, right?
Yes.
Could cost you your life. And so to know the why is to be able to try and hopefully fix some things. But when we say true crime, it's fact-based storytelling describing real criminal cases. And so I think that's the other thing that makes us lean into it, is that this is not the creative side of it, it's the real side of it.
Exactly. It's extra scary.
All right, when did your interest in true crime really like just get bigger?
I think I got into true crime when I was really young, like a child, because my mom used to watch a lot of shows like that, Dateline 2020. We watched Snapped when it was still new.
Snapped on Austin. I was doing a Snap run once. My husband goes, "Is there something I need to know?" I was binge watching. I was like, "No, it's just so interesting." He goes, "Okay, just let me know."
It really is. It's really compelling. And so just kind of grew up into a grown-up hobby as well. Listened to other true crime podcasts and just thought that I needed to make one myself.
Yeah, because you're one of those people that when you're at a cocktail party, you get stuck over by the punch bowl in the corner, because when people find out what you do, it's like, oh, right? Okay, so like any good podcaster, you're constantly learning, you're interested in seeing all types of things, investigating things that we use to create crimes. Just like everything else with technology and crime fighting has changed as well, or crime solving, I should say. An example is genetic genealogy.
Yes, genetic genealogy is new. It's solving lots of crimes, and the people who are able to do this technique are just so smart, so creative, and it's nice to see some of these really old cases finally get solved, because I feel like, you know, we don't have justice for people. It just leaves this big open wound, I think, even for people like of subsequent generations. So it's awesome that these crimes are finally getting solved and people are getting arrested for them.
Yeah, because they would collect evidence and they keep them in an evidence room. And then once we decided to crack the code of DNA, they were able to say, let's go back to that evidence. We were talking before the show, there was one of, speaking of those shows that we watch, one of them where this woman was arrested and they're like, she's like, I did not do this. I did not. And they're like, we have your DNA. So I'm sorry, open shut case, right? Turns out she forgot to mention she has an identical twin, and the identical twin was the bad one right there. So, but there's all kinds of wild investigative discoveries, recovering deleted files and messages.
Yes, we love those on Bad Acts, because they usually are people that think they're smarter than everyone else, and they'll have all sorts of incriminating messages, incriminating photos. They'll delete them before they turn in their devices, and of course forensics techs can go back and pull that up, and it's just always funny when they get confronted with something they thought they deleted.
Yeah, it's like, why were you buying cyanide again? Right,
but
that Control-Alt-Delete doesn't really mean Control-Alt-Delete. It just frees up some space for you while you're using computer. But yeah, they can find those things, and that's by design, by the way. Right? Okay. What is the biggest crime mystery of all time that we know of through history or even currently that you wish you had the answer to?
I think I'm going to go with the Axeman of New Orleans.
The Axeman of, I don't know the Axeman of New Orleans. Tell us about
that.
Back
in 1918 through 1919, an axeman was threatening New Orleans, was killing people with their own axes and prying off panels on their doors to sneak into houses at night. Wow. Yeah, and they never caught him. There was one really exciting moment where the killer allegedly wrote a letter to the police and the newspaper saying that he would kill on a specific night unless everyone was playing jazz music.
Oh, wow. Okay,
Yes.
crazy. Yeah, like you said earlier, they're all those folks are a little bit different. But, you know, there's always like, you know, Jack the Ripper, the old
Yes.
historical cases there, the JonBenet Ramsey case. There are just so many different ones that we wish we had the answer to and we
Exactly.
keep pursuing. All right, what's another one?
I also am interested in JonBenet. I feel like that one's going to be solvable though, because I believe there's DNA is what they've said more recently. And with all the different advancements we've had, I definitely think that one's going to get solved as well.
Yeah, and so we say DNA, and so we know the mother's DNA should be with her, and the father's DNA should be all that, but this is probably DNA outside of the family then. Oh, interesting. I got to listen to the podcast for that. All right, Comicpalooza, the panel that you're going to be on, what can people expect?
Okay, so we're doing the science of true crime, and we're really going to be looking back at the history of forensics, starting in ancient China.
Oh, wow.
And going all the way till today with different techniques that police have used, our investigators have used to solve crime, and just going over the highlights of that. And we want it to be very fun while still being educational. And we're going to do like a little Q&A with the audience. So as we go, it'll be like a trivia game as well as informational.
You talk about how the beginning of crime solving in that way, going back to China, there was a story about, was it a farmer or? Yeah,
Yes.
tell me about that story.
There was a farmer who was murdered with some slashing on him. And so the village lawman collected all the other farmers that lived near the area and had them put their weapons down. And of course, all the weapons looked clean. They were not technically weapons, they were their field instruments.
Yeah.
And while he was questioning them, the lawman watched and waited to see which one of the clean weapons would draw in flies.
Stop.
So they know that this is the killer because the flies were attracted to the residual blood that had been washed away from the tool.
Oh, wow. Yeah, and that's another one. People will like use a murder weapon and think they washed it and don't know the blood that's caught in crevices, caught in the wood, wooden handle of something, and the whole bit. All right, the first case solved by fingerprints.
Oh, okay. So that took place in Argentina in the 1800s, and we had a lady named Francisca Rojas. She had framed a man for murder and had actually committed the crime. And at first, the police really believed her story. They were going after this man. He claimed he was innocent. And then one of the investigators had read about fingerprints being used to identify people. So he went to the scene and he found a thumbprint in the door frame, and it was in blood. So they knew it happened during the murder. So he confronted Francisca because her thumbprint was the one that it matched. And she confessed.
And the rest is history. We know that fingerprints are, you know, unique to each individual. The first toxicology test used to convict a criminal.
That one's really interesting. It's for arsenic, and the man who invented it, his name was James Marsh. He had been frustrated because he had caught another criminal who had poisoned his father with arsenic in his coffee, but the test they had at the time, James Marsh had tested it, but the results degraded. So the jury didn't believe him that he found arsenic. So he was able to create a test that actually did work and have results that lingered. And then there was a French case where a woman was convicted of killing her husband, also with arsenic.
Wow, arsenic, and then antifreeze is another one we find a lot.
Antifreeze comes up a lot.
And then exhuming bodies, because you know sometimes they think once the dirt goes on and they're buried, okay, good, they buried the mystery, or they buried my crime, but nope, you can still find stuff lingering in tissue, right?
Exactly, lingering in tissue, and they can compare it to other possible sources to confirm that it actually was poisoning.
Yeah, all right. The forensics history that surprised you the most?
Ooh. I think that it was really interesting that a lot of the things like cyber forensics and stuff, it actually came out before things that we have now that we think of as being like old stuff.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah.
And so it was kind of interesting to, when you look at the timeline, just how things fall into place. Sometimes we think that something is old, as new technology, was actually old technology.
Yeah, and that happens in a lot of ways. And then, of course, you know, with the advent of DNA and so many other things, we started this new divisions all across the country, or all around the world, actually, the cold case departments, like going back in and looking at old files and solving things. And as you mentioned, you know, it's like it's a certain mindset that's a detective. You're kind of like that too, and you're like you're listening and reading stories again and catching sometimes as simple as a word somebody may have said, right?
Exactly. That is so interesting when you can go back and like, or see when somebody sent a message, or like when they were asking people like, oh, can you meet me at my house or whatever. And then if you look at what order they invited people in, you see that there was like a total setup.
Yeah. In fact, there's one I was looking at, I think the word was fortuitous, the person said. The person kept using fortuitous, and then they had written it in a letter, like a ransom letter, and then they said it, and when the police were interviewing them, they're like, oh, there's that word. That's not such a common word. So anyway, all types of things. You will get caught. But, but the mystery is how many are not caught. We were talking about serial killers also earlier, and there are the ones that we hear about. The deal is there are a lot of them that are unsolved.
There really are, especially if you look through history. I mean, it took so long for people to even get used to doing crime scene investigation. Like that didn't really become a thing till the mid 1900s to like preserve a crime scene and try to gather this evidence. And so if you really look through history, it's not that shocking that so many people got away with murder because they just didn't have the tools and resources that we have now to try to track people.
Not to mention cameras everywhere.
Yes.
All right, Danielle, thank you so much. Can't wait for the panel. Danielle Blinka will be hosting her Comicpalooza panel, Fingerprints, DNA, and the Drive to Solve Puzzles, the Science of True Crime. It's this Friday from 2:30 to 3:15 p.m. on the Blue Topaz stage at the George R. Brown Convention Center. Comicpalooza prices increase at midnight tonight, so get your tickets right now. You can also hear a new episode of Bad Acts, a true crime podcast, each Thursday, anywhere you listen to your favorite podcast.